The signal in the ruins. Marcus Wade knew the risks of venturing into the Deadlands. Every salvager who survived longer than a month learned to read the signs, the way the red dust settled on abandoned equipment, how the wind whispered through the twisted metal graves of forgotten mining operations. But today, something felt different in the air, an electric tension that made the hair on his neck stand up. His rover, affectionately named Old Faithful, crawled over another dune of rust-colored sand. The vehicle's patchwork hull groaned under the strain, joints welded and rewelded so many times they looked like metallic scars. Marcus adjusted his filtration mask and checked the radiation readings again. Normal, but that didn't mean much in the Deadlands. Some of the nastiest surprises came with perfectly normal readings. The ruins of Mining Complex 23 loomed ahead, its fractured towers reaching toward the purple sky like broken fingers. Marcus had avoided this place for months. Too many stories about salvagers disappearing here, about strange lights in the night. But his last 3 expeditions had barely yielded enough salvage to keep his life support running. He needed a big score. "Just a quick sweep," he muttered to himself, his voice rough from disuse. "In and out before sunset." The complex's main gate hung open, its security systems long dead. Marcus guided Old Faithful through carefully, scanning for the telltale shimmer of active defense fields. Nothing. Just dust, silence, and the ever-present wind that seemed to carry whispers of the past. He parked in what had once been a loading bay and began his systematic search. Years of experience had taught him where to look for valuable salvage. Maintenance bays often held precious power cells, and administrative offices sometimes contained rare earth elements used in quantum computers. The search yielded the usual finds: some copper wire, a half-functional power converter, a few containers of synthetic lubricant that hadn't completely degraded. Nothing special, but enough to keep him fed for another week. Then he saw it. In a half-collapsed storage room, partially buried under debris, a faint blue glow caught his eye. Marcus approached cautiously, scanner extended. The readings made no sense, energy patterns he'd never seen before, oscillating in impossible ways. The source was a device about the size of his palm, its casing made of an iridescent material that seemed to shift colors as he turned it. Definitely not human manufacture. The surface was covered in flowing symbols that moved like liquid when he touched them. "Well," he breathed, "that's new." As if responding to his voice, the device hummed to life. A holographic display materialized above it, and Marcus found himself staring into the most extraordinary eyes he'd ever seen. They belonged to a feminine face with delicate features, skin the color of twilight, and hair that seemed to float as if underwater, sparkling with points of light like stars. "Please," the figure spoke, her voice carrying an otherworldly harmonics that made Marcus's chest tighten. "If anyone receives this, I am Princess Lyra of the Stellarian Empire. My ship was attacked, forced to crash land on this world. They're hunting us. The technology we carry cannot fall into their hands. Please, if you're receiving this, we need." The message cut off in a burst of static. Marcus stood frozen, the device cooling in his hands. His mind raced with implications. Alien technology was strictly regulated by the colonial authority. Even possessing this transmitter could land him in a prison asteroid, but something in those eyes, in the desperation of her voice. A distant boom shook dust from the ceiling. Marcus rushed to a window, wiping away years of grime. On the horizon, a column of smoke rose into the purple sky. His scanner picked up multiple vehicles approaching the complex, heavy ones by the seismic readings. Marcus looked down at the transmitter, then back at the approaching dust clouds. The smart play was to drop the device, jump in Old Faithful, and run. He'd survived this long by avoiding trouble, by staying under the radar. But those eyes haunted him, and something in her voice spoke to a part of himself he thought he'd buried years ago. "I must be losing my mind," he muttered, securing the transmitter in his vest pocket. As he rushed back to his rover, another explosion rocked the complex. This one closer, much closer. The rescue mission was about to begin, whether he was ready or not. Dangerous allies. Old Faithful's engine roared as Marcus gunned it through the complex's rear entrance, taking a maintenance road he'd spotted on his way in. The vehicles behind him were closing fast, too fast for normal salvage operations. Their engines had a distinctive high-pitched whine that spoke of military-grade technology. The transmitter in his pocket pulsed with warmth, and the holographic display flickered to life again. Princess Lyra's face appeared, more desperate than before. "They're jamming our communications. Coordinates, Sector 7. Please hurry." The image dissolved into static, but not before Marcus caught a glimpse of mountains in the background, the twin spears, if he wasn't mistaken. A warning shot struck the ground beside his rover, throwing up a fountain of red sand. These weren't colonial authority troops. They would have announced themselves first. No, this was something else entirely. Movement caught his eye, a figure standing atop a ruined watchtower ahead. As Marcus approached, the figure raised what looked like a mining laser, aiming not at him but at his pursuers. A blast of concentrated energy struck the lead vehicle, causing it to swerve violently. In here, a voice crackled over his rover's emergency frequency. "Quick!" Marcus had seconds to decide. Another blast from behind made the choice for him. He yanked the wheel, following the mysterious figure's directions into what appeared to be a solid rock face. As he passed through, he realized it was a hologram concealing a narrow tunnel. The passage led to a cavernous space filled with salvaged equipment and makeshift workbenches. Marcus stopped the rover, hand on his pistol, as the figure from the tower descended a metal staircase. She was tall and lean, with dark skin marked by elegant circuitry-like tattoos that pulsed with a faint blue light. Her left arm was entirely mechanical, clearly self-modified with various tools and sensors. "Name's Dominique Reed," she said, extending her mechanical hand. "But everyone calls me Phoenix, and you just stirred up one hell of a hornet's nest." "Marcus Wade," he replied cautiously, not taking her hand. "Those weren't ordinary scavengers back there." Phoenix's expression darkened. "Obsidian Syndicate, elite mercenaries who have replaced most of their humanity with cybernetics. They've been combing the Deadlands for weeks looking for something." Her eyes fixed on Marcus's pocket, where the alien transmitter still hummed. "Something like that, I'm guessing." Before Marcus could respond, multiple screens around the workshop lit up with warning signals. Phoenix rushed to a console, her mechanical fingers dancing over the controls. "They're setting up a perimeter," she announced. "Standard Syndicate containment protocol. No one gets in or out until they find what they're looking for." She turned to Marcus. "So, want to tell me why you're carrying Royal Stellarian technology?" Marcus's hand tightened on his pistol. "You seem to know an awful lot about this." Phoenix smiled, but it didn't reach her eyes. "Let's just say I've been tracking the Syndicate's movements for personal reasons. They took something from me, something I intend to get back. But right now, we've got bigger problems." The transmitter activated again, this time projecting a larger image. Princess Lyra appeared, but now Marcus could see more of her surroundings. She was in what appeared to be a crashed ship, its architecture organic and flowing, unlike anything human-made. Blood the color of starlight trickled from a cut above her eye. "Please," she whispered, "if anyone is receiving this, the core cannot fall into their hands. The devastation would be—" An explosion rocked her ship, and the transmission cut out. Phoenix was already moving, grabbing equipment from various workbenches. "The twin spears," she said. "That's where they crashed. I've been monitoring unusual energy signatures from that region but couldn't get close enough to investigate." "Why should I trust you?" Marcus demanded. Phoenix paused in her preparations. "You shouldn't. Just like I shouldn't trust someone foolish enough to pick up alien tech in the Deadlands. But right now, we need each other. You've got the transmitter that can lead us to them, and I've got the knowledge and equipment to get past the Syndicate's blockade." She threw him a package of what looked like military-grade shield generators. "Besides, if the Syndicate gets their hands on whatever the Stellarians are protecting, this won't end with just one alien princess. They'll tear apart every settlement in the sector looking for more." Marcus weighed his options. The smart play was still to hand over the transmitter and walk away. But something about Phoenix's words rang true, and he'd seen the look in Princess Lyra's eyes. Whatever the core was, it was worth dying to protect. The twin spears are at least 2 days' journey through the worst part of the Deadlands, he said finally. And that's assuming we don't run into syndicate patrols. Phoenix's mechanical arm reconfigured itself into what appeared to be a long-range scanner. Who said anything about going through? She pressed a button on her console, and part of the workshop's floor began to retract, revealing a sleek vehicle unlike anything Marcus had ever seen. We're going under. The vehicle was clearly modified from mining equipment, but Phoenix had turned it into something else entirely. Its drill head gleamed with newly forged teeth, and its hull was reinforced with what looked like salvaged military armor. "Meet the Phoenix's wing," she said with obvious pride. "She can bore through solid rock at 40 kilometers per hour, and her sensor suite can detect syndicate energy signatures from 2 clicks out." She began loading equipment into the vehicle's hold. "Of course, if the tunnels collapse, we'll be buried alive, but that's better than what the syndicate will do if they catch us." More explosions echoed from above, closer now. The syndicate was sweeping the area systematically. They didn't have much time. "I must be crazy," Marcus muttered, grabbing his emergency pack from Old Faithful. "But I'm in." Phoenix's tattoos pulsed brighter as she smiled. "Good choice. Now let's go save your princess before the syndicate tears this place apart looking for her." As they boarded the Phoenix's wing, Marcus couldn't shake the feeling that he was missing something crucial. Phoenix knew too much, moved too confidently. But with the syndicate closing in and Princess Lyra's desperate plea echoing in his mind, he had no choice but to trust her, for now. The drilling vehicle's engines hummed to life, and the floor beneath them began to tilt. Marcus took one last look at Old Faithful, hoping he'd see his faithful rover again. "Hold tight," Phoenix called from the control seat. "First drop's always the worst." The vehicle plunged into darkness, and their race against the syndicate began in earnest. Secrets below. The Phoenix's wing carved through ancient rock like a ghost through shadows, its drill head spinning silently thanks to Phoenix's modifications. Marcus watched geological layers scroll past on the external cameras, trying to ignore the increasingly cramped feeling in his chest. They'd been underground for 6 hours, and the weight of Earth above them was beginning to feel very real. "You're awful quiet for someone who just started an interstellar incident," Phoenix remarked from the pilot's seat. Her mechanical arm interfaced directly with the vehicle's controls. "Just wondering how you learned so much about Stellarian technology," Marcus replied carefully. The transmitter in his pocket had gone silent, but its warmth remained constant. Phoenix's circuitry tattoos pulsed in what might have been amusement. "Let's just say I've had encounters with them before. The Stellarians aren't just any alien civilization, they're one of the oldest. Their technology is practically magic by our standards." A warning light flashed on the console. Phoenix's mechanical arm whirred as she adjusted their course. "Syndicate patrol above us. They're using ground-penetrating radar, but we're too deep for them to get a clear reading." Marcus studied the sensor display. "They're moving in a search pattern. They must know roughly where the princess crashed." "Which means we're running out of time." Phoenix activated additional screens, showing a 3-dimensional map of their surroundings. "There's an abandoned mining complex ahead. We'll need to surface briefly to recharge our power cells." The complex turned out to be more than abandoned. It was ancient. The Phoenix's wing emerged into a vast underground chamber supported by columns carved with symbols Marcus didn't recognize. The air was stale but breathable. "This isn't colonial architecture," Marcus observed as they exited the vehicle. The chamber was lit by strips of bioluminescent fungus that cast everything in an eerie blue glow. "Pre-colonial," Phoenix confirmed, setting up portable power collectors. "From the first wave of human expansion, but look closer at those markings." Marcus approached one of the columns, brushing away centuries of dust. The symbols seemed to shift under his touch, similar to those on the transmitter. "Stellarian." "Now you're asking the right questions." Phoenix's mechanical eye glowed as she scanned the chamber. "The Stellarians were here long before us. This whole planet is riddled with their old outposts." The transmitter suddenly hummed to life, projecting Princess Lyra's image. She looked worse, more injured, more desperate. If you're receiving this, we've moved. The ship's core is unstable. The radiation, it's changing things. My people never meant for this technology to. Static consumed her words. What exactly is this core everyone's so interested in? Marcus asked, watching Phoenix's reaction carefully. She was silent for a long moment, her tattoos pulsing in an agitated pattern. The Stellarians discovered something, a way to manipulate reality itself, but it was too dangerous, too unpredictable. They sealed away their discoveries in cores like the one your princess is carrying. And the Syndicate wants it for themselves. They want to reverse engineer it. Imagine cybernetic enhancement that could rewrite the laws of physics. They'd be unstoppable. A distant rumble shook dust from the ceiling. Phoenix's sensors lit up with warnings. Multiple Syndicate vessels converging on this location. They must have detected our power signature. Marcus checked his weapons, a futile gesture against cybernetically enhanced mercenaries. How much longer for the recharge? 10 minutes minimum. Phoenix's mechanical arm transformed into what looked like a weapon configuration he'd never seen before. And before you ask, yes, I've got a few surprises ready for them, but we need to. She never finished the sentence. A section of the chamber wall exploded inward, and armored figures strode through the breach. Their cybernetic enhancements gleamed in the fungal light, and their eyes glowed with an unnatural red fire. Dominique Reed, the lead figure announced, its voice distorted by mechanical enhancement. The director warned us you might interfere. Your obsession with Stellarian technology has become tiresome. Phoenix's response was a burst of energy from her arm cannon that forced the Syndicate troops to scatter. Marcus, get to the wing, complete the recharge sequence. Marcus dove behind a column as energy weapons filled the air with deadly light. He worked his way toward the vehicle, but more Syndicate troops were rappelling down from above. Through the chaos, the transmitter activated again. This time, Princess Lyra's image was clearer, more focused. The core is changing, she said urgently. It's becoming unstable. I can feel it reaching out, connecting with the old network. If it fully activates, her eyes widened in genuine fear. You must hurry, the mountains, follow the light. The message ended just as a Syndicate blast struck near Marcus's position. The ancient column cracked, symbols flaring with sudden life. All around the chamber, similar markings began to glow. Phoenix, Marcus shouted. Something's happening. The circuitry tattoos on Phoenix's skin were blazing now, resonating with the awakening symbols. Her mechanical arm sparked with excess energy. The core, she called back. It's activating the old Stellarian network. We need to. Another explosion rocked the chamber. Marcus saw Phoenix thrown backward by a Syndicate blast, her mechanical arm severely damaged. He made a split-second decision and ran toward her, firing his pistol to provide cover. This is touching, the Syndicate leader said, advancing through the firefight. But ultimately futile. The core will belong to us. The secrets of the Stellarians will finally. The leader's words cut off as the chamber filled with blinding light. The glowing symbols on the columns pulsed in sync, and Marcus felt reality itself seemed to bend. Through the light, he saw Phoenix grab something from her damaged arm, a small device that looked disturbingly similar to his transmitter. I'm sorry, she whispered, and threw the device at the Syndicate troops. The resulting explosion wasn't one of conventional weapons. It was as if space itself fractured for a moment. When Marcus's vision cleared, the Syndicate forces were gone, leaving only scorched metal and the lingering smell of ozone. Phoenix lay unconscious, her mechanical arm completely dead, but her tattoos still pulsed weakly. The transmitter showed one final image of Princess Lyra, her expression both hopeful and afraid. You're close now, she said. But hurry, the core's activation has begun, and it's not just the Syndicate we need to worry about anymore. Marcus looked at Phoenix's unconscious form, then at the recharging wing, and finally at the transmitter. He had a feeling the real mysteries were only beginning to unfold. The journey to the twin spears would have to wait. First, he needed answers, and the woman who seemed to know far too much about everything was finally in no position to avoid his questions. Truth and transformation. Phoenix regained consciousness as Marcus finished securing her to the wing's co-pilot seat. Her tattoos flickered weakly, and her mechanical arm hung lifeless at her side. "You could have left me," she said, voice hoarse. "Still might." Marcus held up her device, the twin to his transmitter. "After you explain what this is and who you really are." She laughed, then winced in pain. "Would you believe I'm trying to save humanity?" "Try again." Phoenix's organic eye met his, while her mechanical one remained dark. "I was part of the first contact team with the Stellarians 15 years ago, before the colonial authority censored everything, before they tried to weaponize what we found." The transmitter in Marcus's pocket hummed to life, but instead of Princess Lyra's face, it displayed a series of shifting symbols. Phoenix's tattoos pulsed in response. "The Stellarians didn't just visit Earth," she continued. "They've been guiding our evolution for millennia. The core your princess carries, it's part of a network designed to shepherd developing civilizations. But something went wrong." Marcus checked the wing's sensors. The chamber's collapse had bought them time, but more syndicate forces were converging on the area. "What kind of wrong?" "The core began adapting, evolving. It started changing people who came in contact with it. That's how I got these." She nodded to her tattoos. "They're not decorative. They're a side effect of exposure to core energy, a mutation." As if in response, the symbols on both transmitters began to align. A holographic map appeared, showing their position relative to the twin spears. But there was something else, a network of glowing lines running deep beneath the planet's surface. "The old network," Phoenix explained. "The core is reconnecting, trying to fulfill its original purpose. But after thousands of years of dormancy, the energy is unstable. If it fully activates," she shook her head, "it won't just transform people anymore, it'll rewrite reality itself." An alert flashed on the wing's console. More seismic activity, but not from syndicate equipment. The planet itself seemed to be responding to the core's awakening. "And the princess?" Marcus asked, starting the engine. "Where does she fit in?" "The Stellarians sent her to deactivate the core. Their own creation has grown beyond their control, but the syndicate," Phoenix's expression darkened. "They want to control it, use it to force the next step in human evolution. They don't understand that some boundaries weren't meant to be crossed." The wing's drill engaged, and they began their journey toward the twin spears. But something was different. The rock ahead seemed to part more easily, as if the planet itself was guiding their path. "You're connected to it, aren't you?" Marcus realized. "The network, that's how you knew where to find me." Phoenix nodded slowly. "The exposure changed me. I can feel the core's energy, track its movements, but I'm not the only one, the syndicate. They've found their own ways to tap into it. That's what their cybernetic enhancements are really for." The transmitter activated again, showing Princess Lyra. She was running through crystalline corridors that seemed to shift and flow around her. "The core is transforming the crash site," she gasped. "Reality is becoming fluid. If you can hear this, stay away. It's too dangerous. I'll try to contain it myself." "She'll fail," Phoenix said quietly. "The core can't be contained anymore. It has to be destroyed, even if that means destroying the entire network." Marcus studied the map. They were getting closer to the twin spears, but the glowing lines of energy were growing more intense, spreading like veins through the rock. "And what happens to you if we destroy it?" Phoenix's remaining organic eye met his. "I don't know, maybe nothing. Maybe everything these changes have made me will disappear, but it's better than the alternative." The wing sensors suddenly screamed warnings. The tunnel ahead was transforming, crystalline structures growing and shifting like living things. The rock itself seemed to pulse with otherworldly energy. "We're getting close to the crash site," Phoenix announced. "The core's influence is stronger here. Reality will become unpredictable." As if to prove her point, a section of tunnel wall became transparent, revealing impossible vistas. Alien landscapes, fragments of other worlds, moments in time that hadn't happened yet. "How do we destroy something that can reshape reality?" Marcus asked, trying to keep the wing steady as space itself seemed to flex around them. "The Stellarians built a failsafe into each core, a way to shut down the entire network if it ever grew beyond control. But it requires, Phoenix hesitated. It requires both a human and a Stellarian to activate, a final safeguard to ensure neither species could change the course of evolution alone. Marcus's hands tightened on the controls. You knew all along we'd need to work with the princess. Yes, but I also knew the Syndicate would be tracking any direct communication with her. We needed to appear to find her by chance. Phoenix's tattoos pulsed stronger now, resonating with the energy around them. I'm sorry for the deception, but the stakes are too high for transparency. The tunnel opened into a vast underground cavern and Marcus's breath caught. The princess's ship lay at the center, but it was barely recognizable. Crystal formations had grown around and through it, pulsing with the same energy that flowed through the ancient network. Reality itself seemed to bend and warp near the crash site. And standing at the edge of the crystalline growth was a figure in sleek armor, the Syndicate director himself, his cybernetic enhancements glowing with absorbed core energy. Ah, Dominique, the director's mechanically enhanced voice echoed through the cavern. I had hoped you would bring the other transmitter to us. Now we can begin the real work. Behind him, more reality distortions rippled through the air. The core's power was growing stronger by the second. Marcus looked at Phoenix, saw the determination in her organic eye, and made his decision. Whatever happened next would change everything, not just for them, but for both their species. The only question was, would that change bring evolution or extinction? Evolution's edge. The cavern trembled as reality continued to warp around them. Marcus watched crystalline formations grow and dissolve like breathing things, while ribbons of pure energy twisted through the air. At the center of it all, the core pulsed within the princess's crashed ship, its power reaching out to reshape everything it touched. Your resistance is primitive, the Syndicate director said, his cybernetic enhancements glowing brighter with absorbed energy. Evolution cannot be stopped. The Stellarians understood this once before they grew afraid of their own creation. Phoenix's tattoos blazed in response to the growing power. They grew wise, not afraid. They saw what unlimited evolution would do, create chaos, uncontrolled transformation, the breakdown of reality itself. A figure emerged from the crystalline growth around the ship, Princess Lyra, her alien beauty now tinged with an otherworldly radiance. The core's energy flowed around her like a living aura. You don't understand what you're dealing with, Lyra called out, her voice carrying harmonics that made reality shimmer. The core network wasn't meant to force evolution. It was meant to guide it, to prevent exactly this kind of chaos. The director laughed, the sound distorted by his enhancements. Then your people were weaker than we thought. Humanity will succeed where you failed. We will embrace the change. He raised his hand, and streams of core energy flowed into his cybernetics, transforming them into something even more alien. Marcus felt the transmitter in his pocket pulse in sync with Phoenix's tattoos. The failsafe, he whispered. How do we activate it? The transmitters, Phoenix replied, her organic eye fixed on Lyra while her mechanical one sparked with growing power. They're not just communication devices, they're keys, but we need to get closer to the core. The director's transformation was accelerating. His cybernetic parts had become something fluid and crystalline, spreading across his organic tissue like a living metal. I can feel it, he announced, his voice now barely human. The next stage of evolution. Reality fractured around him as he drew more power from the core. Portions of the cavern began to show other times, other places, possible futures bleeding into the present. Marcus saw versions of Earth transformed beyond recognition. Humanity evolved into something unrecognizable. Now, Phoenix shouted, breaking free from her restraints. Her mechanical arm, previously dead, suddenly blazed with energy. The tattoos across her skin formed new patterns, resonating with the core's frequency. Marcus understood without words. He grabbed both transmitters and ran toward Lyra, dodging streams of reality-warping energy. The director moved to intercept, but Phoenix launched herself at him, her transformed mechanical arm clashing with his crystalline enhancements. Get to the core, she yelled, grappling with the director as both their bodies pulsed with stolen power. End this before there's nothing left to save. Lyra met Marcus halfway, her alien eyes now glowing with the same energy that filled the cavern. The failsafe, she said urgently. We must hurry, reality is becoming unstable. They reached the core together, a sphere of pure light suspended in the heart of the crashed ship. Up close, Marcus could feel its pull, the temptation to embrace the change it offered. He understood now why the director had been seduced by its power. Both species, Lyra reminded him, taking one of the transmitters, both choosing to end this. Behind them, Phoenix and the director's battle had become something beyond physical. Their transformed bodies shifted and flowed, each trying to control the core's power flowing through them. The cavern itself was breaking down, showing glimpses of other worlds, other possibilities. Marcus raised his transmitter as Lyra raised hers. Evolution should be earned, he said firmly, not stolen. They activated the devices simultaneously. The transmitters resonated with the core, their symbols aligning perfectly. A pulse of pure white light erupted from the sphere, expanding outward in a wave of cleansing energy. Marcus watched as the wave passed through everything, the crystalline growths, the reality fractures, the battling figures of Phoenix and the director. Where it touched, it restored order, stripped away the chaotic evolution, returned things to their natural state. The director screamed as his enhanced form was reverted, his cybernetics falling away like broken glass. Phoenix gasped as her tattoos faded, but her eyes remained clear and conscious. Her changes, born of earlier exposure, were too fundamental to fully revert. When the wave passed, the cavern was still. The core had gone dark, and with it, the ancient network that spanned the planet. Reality settled back into its proper shape, though marks of what had happened would remain forever in the crystalline formations that now stood frozen like abstract sculptures. Lyra approached Marcus, her natural form somehow more beautiful than her energy-enhanced one had been. "Thank you," she said softly. Few would have chosen stability over the power the core offered. "What happens now?" Marcus asked, looking at Phoenix, who was examining her restored mechanical arm with a mix of relief and regret. "Now," Lyra said, "our peoples continue to evolve as they should, slowly, naturally, earning each step forward." She smiled, "though perhaps with a bit more open communication between us." Phoenix joined them, her remaining tattoos now just faint traces on her skin. "The Syndicate will try again," she warned. "There are other artifacts, other pieces of advanced technology out there." "Then I guess someone needs to find them first," Marcus replied, picking up the transmitter. Now just a simple communication device, but still a connection between two species. Lyra's ship, freed from the crystalline growth, could still fly. As they helped her prepare for departure, she turned to Marcus one last time. "Evolution isn't just about physical change," she said. "It's about choice, about becoming something better through wisdom, not just power." Marcus watched her ship rise through the cavern's open ceiling, disappearing into the purple sky of a world that would keep its secrets for a while longer. Phoenix stood beside him, changed but alive, a bridge between what humanity was and what it could become. "So," she said finally, "ready to help me find the next ancient artifact before the Syndicate does." Marcus looked at the transmitter in his hand, then at the crystalline formations that would stand as monuments to the day humanity chose wisdom over power. "Evolution is a journey, not a destination," he replied. "Might as well make it an interesting one." Above them, the three moons of the colony world shone down on a landscape forever changed, not by uncontrolled evolution, but by the choices of those who understood that true progress comes from cooperation, not conquest. The adventure was just beginning.